Aloha and good afternoon from Hawaii. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz and I'm reporting from eTurboNews and livestream.travel. But here today, we're actually for a very special reason. This is another launch event we have for the launch of World Tourism Network. World Tourism Network is an organization what was initiated by the rebuilding.travel discussion. And as you know or may know, rebuilding.travel was actually the very first discussion about the COVID-19 epidemic before it even was an epidemic. We started this discussion in Berlin on the sideline of the ITB trade show. The only thing is ITB trade show did not happen, but our discussion did happen, and we did this in cooperation with PATA at the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Berlin on March 8th. At that time, we didn't know what COVID is actually doing to the world. It just started, and many people didn't take it serious. Now, these times have changed. We had facilitated our rebuilding.travel discussion over several months, and we thought it was time to structure this in a slightly different format, and that's what you see now. We had our two big launch events yesterday for World Tourism Network. We also had the candidate for the UNWTO elections from Bahrain speaking, and we're very pleased to have many of the leaders in the travel and tourism industry part of our new initiative that includes in the Caribbean, for instance, Minister Bartlett, also from Jamaica. It includes Dr. Taleb Rifai, former Secretary General of the UNWTO, Dr. Peter Tarlow, an expert in travel and security in Texas, Walter Memzibi, a former foreign minister in Zimbabwe, and many, many more. Currently, World Tourism Network has a little bit more than 1,000 members in 124 countries. And we're very excited. We're an organization what is built from the bottom up. We don't want to be an organization what is built from the top down. So chapters are our most important, is the most important part of WTN. We have a chapter in the United States in the Washington, D.C. area. We're very excited. We have chapters in now 11 different regions in the world. We just finished a discussion with Montenegro and the Balkan region. We had Bangladesh earlier. We have a lot of activities in Africa, in Asia. We have a Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia chapter. It's based in Penang, what is very active. We have a chapter here in Hawaii. And chapters could be regional, could be national, could be cities, or could be even parts of cities. Similar to what SCOL is doing and what PATA is doing, chapters should be working independently, and as a global organization, we then are hopefully able to give the chapter activities more weight on a global level, and that's what we're doing. The other part of our organizations are interest groups. We have a growing number of interest groups. Just today, we added fashion tourism, we added marketing, we added a special section for this discussion on food, on climate-friendly travel, education, and these are all chapters that are already in place. Now, all the chapters and interest sections, of course, need leaders. We don't provide these leaders, but if anyone is interested and you're a member of our organization, it's easy to become a member. I'll tell you in a minute. You can actually suggest your own interest group. We help you to find interest. We will help to facilitate sessions like we do right now on a session on the Caribbean. And so we help you to get this discussion going, but it's really your discussion. If you need to reach out to our international network, that's what we are. We are a network. Anyone who's not a member yet should join us. It's very easy. We have both complimentary and paid memberships. The difference is if you are a paid member, you have way more access than not a paid member. You also get your profile on the website, and you can easily be on panels and so forth you're part of the organization. But we also have an observer status. You don't get a profile, but you can just register, so we inform you, so you can look at our sessions. Our sessions like this one is, right now we have 12 people attending, what is not a lot, but there's a lot more in the background. We're live streaming it on eTurboNews and all article pages on eTurboNews. So no matter on what page what article you read right now, you will see your faces on and with this session. What is very powerful, we have many different social media networks, a number of Facebook accounts, LinkedIn, YouTube. It's going to be a podcast, which is on Apple, on Spotify, and we have a number of partner medias that also from time to time stream. We'll repeat this stream similar to what CNN is doing till the end of the month on a rotating basis together with all the other sessions. If you wanted to listen to some of the sessions we had some really good ones, and there are some other good ones coming up. Just go to WTN.travel, click on the blue banner for the expo, or you can go directly to worldexpo.travel. What is a good opportunity also for businesses to profile yourself in the world and get your information out.
Opportunities within the crisis. This seems to be the concept behind the optimism of stakeholders in the tourism sector. They met at the close of the Tourism Week 2020 today.
Of all the sectors impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, tourism arguably took the hardest hit. But Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett believes there are promising days ahead.
I'm excited, therefore, by the prospects of what we can do and will achieve with COVID and post-COVID.
Mr. Bartlett bases his optimism on past experiences. He says after the SARS outbreak in 2003, tourism bounced back, growing by 8%. There was also the H1N1 outbreak, the chikungunya virus, terrorism, including 9/11, and the global recession of 2008.
What we find is that tourism, therefore, is that catalyst which enables quick recovery after global shocks. And this pandemic, in all its negative impact, does not and will not prevent tourism from bouncing back and doing so quickly.
Community tourism and new areas have been listed as central to the growth plan. President of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, Clifton Reeder, listed a new JHTA COVID Ambassador program which aims to share protocols with community members as a critical growth step. The program is based on the success the sector has had since reopening on June 15.
To date, not even one transmission, as far as we know, has been detected between guest, staff, and vice versa. In this program, each participating JHTA member hotel will undertake to educate 2 or 3 small communities in their immediate surroundings and where many of our staff live.
Mr. Bartlett says taking tourism into new communities is nothing new. Over the past 60 years, tourism growth has transformed small towns like Ocho Rios and Negril to now buzzing tourism meccas.
We want this transformation then to happen all across Jamaica in our rural areas. So we are now redefining the destinations to enable that transformation. So St. Thomas is the next frontier for us. And the rest of the South Coast are also on the radar in terms of that. And we're partnering with the Tourism Enhancement Fund to create enablement through economic programs and through credit arrangements with our partners like Exim Bank.
The launch of the JSIF Ready 2 project on Thursday is also seen as a key support system in helping tourism rebound and expand.
Without further ado, I wanted to introduce my good friend, Dr. Eleanor Garley. Eleanor has been working with my company, eTurboNews, in New York for God knows how many years. Doesn't make us old, but it has been a while. And she's known not to do lip service. So her articles are very spicy, are very interesting. And I think this discussion will be very interesting. So I'm looking forward. I don't know what to expect, but welcome, Eleanor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas. It's always an interesting moment in history to share my observations with you on the travel and tourism industry. And I admire you and have for years, because you're the only publisher that has the guts to publish the truth. So rather than just write about or talk about or promote white sandy beaches and blue green water, eTurboNews has the distinction of carrying the message that is not fake news, but is willing to show the dirty laundry, if you will, behind the scenes, a peek behind the palm trees in case of the Caribbean, to what is really going on. What is the life that the people in tourism that live in the cities and the countries and the island nations, what's their take and what's their reality, and why does tourism, while it looks to support it, really in more cases than not exploits the local people. And that has disturbed me for years. It continues to disturb me. It's gotten worse and not better. So we're here today to talk about the Caribbean and to take a look at behind the scenes and unmasking the situation. Of course, the Caribbean relies almost entirely on tourism for its economic base. Unfortunately, in many cases, it's a one-trick pony. And although before COVID BC, there were millions, exactly 9.1 million visitors to the Caribbean region. Tourism was up 12% in the first quarter of 2019 and had the region's highest growth rate at that point in the calendar in very many years. So the largest market for the Caribbean is the United States, followed by Europe and Canada and local tourism. But of course, all of this has been stopped because of COVID. And now the leadership in these island nations is, to be polite, confused about what their future is likely to be. The arrivals are down. The major destinations have lost somewhere between 60 and 70% of their market, with one of the largest declines in the Bahamas. But that includes also St. Martin, St. Lucia, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Grenada, all down 60 to 70% of their tourism. So what do you do in the interim? What do you do when you are trying to reboot and restart your country? Of course, it would have been helpful to everybody if the leadership had taken this time to look at sustainability. One of the major problems in this region is crime, and to improve the livelihood and the access to resources for people living in the Caribbean. But crime is not being addressed. Sustainability is not being addressed. The beaches are in peril, especially now because of COVID and people shedding the virus into the sand, into the oceans. And the opportunities for this expansion of the problem is beyond belief, and there's not a lot of attention being given to the healthcare issues as they relate to COVID. So what we're going to do is have we have two speakers who are very knowledgeable about the Caribbean region, and it's my pleasure to introduce Beverly Sinclair, who is a noted journalist and an expert in covering the Caribbean and knows it from the ground up. Beverly is very socially conscious. She's an intelligent, smart, clever, astute reporter, and has been one of the few voices in the Caribbean with the temerity to tell it as it is. And joining us in this discussion is Athy Martin, formerly a Minister of Agriculture, but I think he found that position a little bit too restricting, and has now moved into being a hotel owner and an advocate for change in his home country of Grenada. So what I'd like to do is turn the microphone on to Beverly. And if you'll unmute yourself, Beverly, you can start our conversation.
Thank you very much, Eleanor, and thank you for that introduction. I certainly like to keep it real, because as a journalist, I believe that is what I should do. The leadership in the Caribbean have certainly not come to the reality of what COVID-19 has done to the tourism industry up to now. From March, way back in March, when we have the CARICOM heads who had a meeting before COVID-19 came to the region, I must add, but they left that meeting with the usual corporate speak. It was a good meeting. We've come to an agreement, and nobody could tell us what the agreement was, not even in point format. Fast forward to the middle of March, COVID-19 entered the region. Cases began being noticed across the region. And even at that point, the leadership at the level of CARICOM, and CARICOM is a grouping of most of the English-speaking countries in the Caribbean. And then we have CARIFORUM, which includes the Dominican Republic as well. There are also associate states and people with observer status. So CARICOM, when you speak about CARICOM, you're referring to about 33 countries overall. The leadership just couldn't get it together. We had lockdown, the tourism industry nosedived, literally shut down. And then you fast forward now, after that shutdown, you have about 500,000 people in the Caribbean who earn a living from tourism, directly and indirectly. 500,000 people immediately became unemployed. What do the leaders in the country do? They take money out of the treasury and say, oh, we're going to prop up this industry. And we're talking about a period when COVID-19 just came into the region. No one knew what was going to happen. But they take money, millions of dollars, and say, oh, we're going to prop up the tourism industry because it's the one-trick pony that Eleanor talked about. No one could conceive a shutdown of the tourism industry. And you know, all the workers, we're going to try and pay them, and we're going to try and keep some buoyancy in the industry. Well, 2, 3 weeks, 3 months into that had to stop. It's just not sustainable. You don't have money to continue paying millions of workers when there isn't any money coming in. It was so ridiculous from the beginning. I don't know how they couldn't see it. So the workers, they stopped being paid. The plants are there, but there are no visitors. And no one can come up with a solution. Even today, you listen to them speak, it's like tourism is going to go back to what it was in 2019.
Exactly.
You know, they keep just harping on the past. No one is rebuilding tourism. Suggestions, myself, Athy, others like us, we have put suggestions on the table, how you need to be looking at this industry, how you need to be moving forward with it. There are still about 33,000 rooms under construction in the Caribbean. And they expect that all of these rooms should come into play by 2022. Where are you going to find people to fill them up when it's not a situation like when we had a hurricane? Because this is what the leadership in the tourism industry keep talking about. Or recover from hurricane, or recover from mosquito-borne diseases like Zika and chikungunya. They keep referring to it as if there is any comparison with COVID-19. A hurricane does not destroy our source market. COVID-19 has destroyed our source market. So
And
you
the
can
marketing dollars, yeah, and the marketing dollars from the press releases and all the media that I receive still talks about white sandy beaches, blue-green water.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
how is anybody, unless you have your own private plane or your yacht, are you going to get to the destination?
But even
And
with a private plane or a yacht these days, there is the cost to do all the COVID-19 testing before you leave your home. There is a cost to do all the COVID-19 testing when you arrive. There is a quarantine requirements from these CARICOM countries. And even now, they have not agreed on a single protocol for the region. So if you land in Grenada, it's a set of protocols there. You land in Jamaica, it's a different set of protocols. St. Lucia, everywhere, they just do their own thing. So a traveler who is coming into the region has to go and search all of these different websites to find out what is required of them before they get here. And nobody goes on vacation to quarantine for 14 days. So
then the problem is the healthcare in some nations, like Nassau, they have a 5-star luxury hospital if you should get sick. In other, and so if you get sick in Nassau, you're okay. In fact, it's better in some cases in some of the hotels. But if you get sick in some of the other nations, then you're in very serious trouble.
As we say in the Caribbean, crop or smoke your pipe. You know, you better don't get sick. And that in colloquial terms mean you're in very bad way, you know. So the leadership, but when you look at the leadership in the tourism industry in the region, they are people who, quite frankly, they're old, they're tired, they're beaten out, they're not in touch with the new generation and what the new generation requires. They're certainly not in touch with the effects of COVID-19 and what the tourism industry is going to look like going forward, because the emphasis is on opening up the ports, getting tourists back. Where these tourists are going to come from, they still need to tell us, because hotels that have reopened are running at less than 20%, maybe 15%. And you cannot maintain a hotel with 15% occupancy. You just can't. And not even in the leanest of days during the summer would you ever see that anywhere in the Caribbean. But that's what's happening now.
Atherton, can you unmute yourself and share with us your observations on what's going on in Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean from your perspective?
No, Athy is still muted. You have to unmute. Athy, your microphone
on
is...
your computer, on your own computer, there should be an unmute.
Yes.
Atherton, on your computer?
There we go.
There
you go.
We got it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so tell us what your take is on the situation.
As long as we fail to listen to the people of the local community, we will continue to mislead the community. Unfortunately, the people who have the answers to tourism, to agriculture, to health, are not the leaders, are not even the professionals, because they're, as COVID illustrates, even the professionals didn't know a thing about this virus and are still muddling. I think part of the reason that the tourism industry has failed in the Caribbean, and it has failed on several counts, is because the people who most critically depend on the economy of these islands doing well are completely excluded from any conversation about what's best for them. The net effect of that is that you have people sitting in offices, sitting in buildings, sitting outside of the region, making decisions about what kind of tourism is best for the Caribbean. You have people trying to give us certification packages, green globe, blue this, whatever it is. But nobody's asking us, what is it you guys do well? Well, here's what we do well. Before the arrival of vast numbers of non-Caribbean people, we used to feed ourselves. We used to feed ourselves with fresh fruit, fresh food, which is why in a country like mine, Dominica, we at one point had the highest ratio of centenarians per 1,000 population, with one singular exception for a country in Europe. And we did that purely on the basis of growing our own food and staying healthy. We have water that is the highest quality water that you could find almost anywhere in the world. So we had good water, we had good food, and we were able to make use of all our materials, whether it be our wood, our stone, our sands, to build our homes. But that was up until a few decades ago. Then somebody got it into their head that we now had to remake the Caribbean to suit somebody's notion of the Caribbean. So they presented pictures of us dancing limbo on beaches and playing steel band and drinking rum. That's not what we do. That's definitely not what we do. I am 74 years old, going to be 75 in a few days' time, and I'm absolutely healthy. And lots of people around me are in that same condition because we eat local. And that element of health and wellness and building immune systems that can withstand global pandemics, local pandemics, whatever it is, has been, if you will, excised out of our tourism products. So you'll come to a 5-star hotel in the Caribbean and you'll eat European, but you wouldn't eat what we eat. Do you want to? Do you even know that what we eat is good for us and could be good for you? So the brand definition of our product has been wrong, has been all wrong. You're trying to give people a product that they left in the metropole. You come to a hotel that feels and looks like the apartment building that they left in Manhattan, as opposed to finding a way to, if you will, if you spread the living experience that a visitor could have in an island by living in cottages, living in small homes, etc., interspersed among the local community, so that they breathe the air we breathe, drink the water we drink, and eat the food that we eat, walk the hills that we walk, and so stay healthy. And it is interesting.
I read that the leadership of your country wanted to build an international airport in order to increase tourism, and you fought the decision tooth and nail. Could you share?
I don't believe we need an international airport in Dominica. All around us, within short distances, there are 20 international airports in the Caribbean islands. 20. Some of these islands are not more than 15 minutes by air apart from each other. How many more airports do we need? What we need is boats. That's all we use to travel. The Kalinago people used their canoes to go from island to island. Later on, shipwrights built vessels, sails, totally renewable energy driven by the wind. And that is how they moved themselves and cargo throughout the Caribbean. But no, we felt we wanted to imitate you. And be more like you and sort of take on the big ships and the big steamers and the containerized cargo, etc., etc. And so we placed ourselves at the mercy of the decision makers who were not here resident with us. And so international airports don't make a difference if you don't have a product. If you in our case, 40% of our island is protected by law. Since 1975, you cannot cut a tree in 40% of the island. We have 12 large rivers that on a daily basis deliver 150 million gallons of water into the Caribbean Sea every 24 hours, 12 of them. So we have water in a world that is running out of water, and that is not part of your tourism brand. That is not part of your incentive to have people come here. We grow food 12 months a year because we have. fair weather, literally 12 months a year. Our food is grown mostly naturally, except for the plantation crops like bananas and so forth. But our food is grown without artificial fertilizers, without pesticides, etc. So that's why we're healthy. It seems to me we do not sell that. We do not market that. We do not involve people in marveling that we were able to protect 40% of our land from deforestation at a time when massive deforestation, fires all over the place, climate change issues. And so you see, we've got it wrong.
So where do Beverly and Atherton, where and how do we reach leadership? The millions and billions of dollars that is spent in marketing are the story, are exactly as you point. They create the marketing efforts have created for the tourist a Disney-like environment from the time that they land at the airport to the time they make it through on their limousines or their vans to the hotel. They're involved in and talked, and their conversations are all about keeping the eyes away from the poverty, their eyes away from the bad roads, so that they're distracted until they get into the hotel. The hotel then greets them with warmth and lovely smiles, and they're escorted to their rooms, and they're in this magic place. So we have magical thinking and magical experiences until it's time for them to go home. And again, they come on carpet, these magic carpets, and bring them back to their homes, and everything has been wonderful. Of course, behind that screen is the reality of the country, which the tourist does not want to see, and which the leadership does not want to show. So we have one side in Disney and fantasy, and then we have the reality of life in these nations. And there is no connection. There's not even any friction between one and the other. So how do we take the money when COVID is history, and tourism will return at some level? How do we enable the people who are living in the country and providing the services? How can you create a revenue stream so that the money that's spent in the islands finds its way into the schools and the healthcare and the homes and the pockets of people who live in these countries? Beverly, you have some thoughts?
That is an area which has not been given thought, because that is not how the tourism industry is looked at and developed in these islands. The people who live in the islands.
Did we lose you?
No, I'm still here as far as I can see.
No, she should be in the spotlight, Elena.
Right.
Okay. No, because I stopped hearing you.
Those who manage the tourism product have a different agenda from those who would develop and contribute to the sustainability, and also to those who benefit from the tourism product. The 500,000 people that I mentioned earlier who earn a living directly and indirectly from tourism in these countries, they do not benefit from what tourism brings into the region. A large percentage of the foreign exchange is repatriated. It doesn't even get spent in the Caribbean. And the little that does get spent here, it goes for taxes and fees, which ends up in the government coffers. And we know that there appears to be a black hole in government coffers. When money goes in, you don't know where it comes out. So the whole structure of how the finances from tourism is channeled, that is something which would have to be looked at in a conscious, practical, working sense, so that those who work and contribute to the industry can actually benefit from it in a meaningful way. The people in the islands and in the various territories, they have the jobs at the lowest end of the scale. You hardly find natives, residents, citizens of the various countries in the top echelons of the management of tourism in the region.
Yes.
So the bartenders, the cooks, the maids, all those folks who earn the lowest make up the bulk of the
Right.
people from
And
the
that's the way
territory.
they've wanted to keep it.
Right, and
I
that's
have personally
exactly
tried to create an educational system in the Caribbean with a career path in mind. So it becomes a mini Cornell or other universities that teach hotels, travel, and tourism. But the idea is that you start at the bottom and work your way up
and
to
work your way
manager,
up.
or you work your way through to becoming an owner.
Right.
It's not training, it's education. And I've spent my own hours and hours and hours talking to various ministers about not looking at the training component, but looking at the industry from an educational point of view. And I get yes to death. And years and days later, years later, decades later, those people are still being trained, if you excuse the expression, into being bartenders and housekeepers, and not moved into management. And then they can't understand when they tell me why people are bored. You know, they don't understand the industry. You've got to smile all the time and be kind and blah, blah. I said, if they're not motivated, because no matter what they do or how they do it, they're not going to be moved into management.
Yes, and they will never get
always a bartender.
They will never get to enjoy one of those vacations that they have to sell.
That's right.
You know, they will never be the guest. They'll always be the person who is serving. And those who control the industry do not even realize what it does to the psyche of your workers. When you talk about escorting guests to their room, giving them this magic carpet ride. But the person who works in the hotel is never able to ride on that magic carpet. They don't earn enough. They never earn enough to be able to take a vacation in one of those 5-star hotels. They can't afford it.
Do you think that this is one of the reasons that crime is becoming even worse than it ever has been in the Caribbean?
Most of the crime in the Caribbean is politically motivated. People like to associate crime with poverty because they don't realize that here on the ground in the Caribbean, crime has its roots in politics. And you could slice it any which way you want. When you get to the core, there's going to be some political agenda in the midst of the crime in the Caribbean. The politicians know this. And if we can get the politics right, it will eliminate a lot of the crime. The guns and other weapons of crime that come into the Caribbean, they're not made here. They're imported. They find ways to get into the country. And the boy on the street who is firing one of those guns, he does not have the resources to bring them in here. They are brought in by people who have the resources and the connections to do that.
Yeah, the news has it that the Mexican cartel is moving from Mexico and taking over many of the Caribbean countries for some of the nefarious activities that they plan, and are including drugs and smuggling and all sorts of other crimes that have dominated Mexico are now spreading over into Caribbean. And even leadership in some of the countries have said they would be doing better economically if the crime would stop. But somehow the crime is not, and even though they've brought in the FBI and other experts in crime prevention, crime control, it still hasn't stopped the crime from expanding and escalating in these countries. Making it, and so some of the press releases say that the crime is not against the tourists, it's against the locals. Crime is crime, and you never know when you're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly, and those in positions of leadership and authority, they know if we get the politics right, and if we get certain things right, then crime will fall away. But until there is a political will to do that, Eleanor, crime will continue to be something that we give lip service, and we have big meetings and big discussions on crime, but nothing is ever done. As they sit in the meeting speaking, another shipment of arms is coming in, another shipment of drugs is coming in, and nobody is doing anything to stop it. And they know.
There's also discussion that some of the resources that could go into education and healthcare are being used to build prisons.
Well,
So,
I don't know that any prisons have been built recently, you know. I just know that we're cramming more and more people who commit petty crimes into the prisons. But those who control the crime agenda, they're not going to prison. They're not.
And that's unfortunately probably the situation, not only, to be fair, in the Caribbean. It's, I think, any destination, and unfortunately many destinations or regions that have tourism arrivals have a similar issue. I mean, I know only from the Caribbean, when you look at Jamaica, Jamaica has done has invested in crime prevention, in security and safety. If you look at Sandals Resort, I know they have heavily invested to keep that resort safe, and they've done, I think, a fantastic job. I know in the case of Jamaica, even with the assistance of the U.S. Embassy, there have been a number of activities I'm aware of that actually hopefully reduce crimes. What has, of course, no influence on the domestic policies and what everything you mentioned.
Well, the National Security Minister in Jamaica, Peter Bunting, has said that crime and corruption remain the main obstacle in the country's rapid growth and development. And I have a quote from Perry Christie, the Bahamas Prime Minister. He suggested that crime has become the most significant challenge to economic development that his country and the region have to address, and has found that criminal violence, robbery, and theft are underestimated in the statistics. So
we're looking in the wrong mirror, you know. I think we're looking at the wrong mirror. The crime, the most serious and grievous crimes in our region and in many other developing parts of the world are committed by the people in the leadership of the country. It is a crime to send a child to school and that child goes to 12 years of school and comes out and unable to read and write and to compute. It's not a crime to build a hospital that the local people cannot even get to. It's a crime to have a healthcare system that ignores nutrition as the best way to good health and plies people with imported pharmaceuticals. I mean, these are crimes of policy. These are crimes, there's ecocide crimes, crimes of destruction of our natural environment that never go to a court, that never get punished. The real criminals are making the decisions of the country at the policy level, at the technical level, at the administrative level. It is not a nice thing to have to say, but it is a fact that unless we actually clean out the source of, you know, the abuse of resources, the abuse of money, the abuse of land, the abuse of water, unless we clean that up, we're not really going to have peaceful, growing economies. The other part of the problem really is, it is so clear what needs to be done to develop these economies. It has been written about, it has been spoken about. In some cases, it has been put into practice in pilot programs and still ignored. We know we can grow healthy food. I made that point earlier. What is more important to a people than what they eat? You are what you eat. But if you are in a situation like we are now in the Caribbean, where we have a $9 billion US food import bill into the English-speaking Caribbean, the countries that can feed themselves and grow more for export, we are importing foods into our region with all the, you know, MSGs and all the additives and the colorings. And so chronic non-communicable diseases 10 years ago became the prime killer of Caribbean people, like diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, cancer. These are the things killing our people. That's a crime. That didn't happen accidentally. That happened by by policies of import dependence as opposed to policies of growing an economy based on the talents and skills and aspirations and hopes of the people of a country. That is why tourism can never grow in the Caribbean. We use statistics, arrivals, average spend, etc., how many cruise ships, etc. And while those numbers are on the way up, poverty is increasing, unemployment is increasing, disease is increasing, homelessness, lack of proper housing, all of the, we're living in a dyadic kind of world where you can see what looks like wealthy people going into hotels and driving big cars, and you yourself are living hand to mouth. It's a formula for not just crime, but it's a formula for conflict in society. And the way forward is simply this. If we want people to come and visit our region, let them eat what we eat, let them sleep where we sleep, how we sleep, they walk where we walk, let them have our experience. If we want a situation where we want to maintain a healthy environment for ourselves, which will automatically result in a healthy environment for the visitors, we have to stop importing cars that use fossil fuel. And we have to convert our energy sector to renewable energy, from wind, which we have lots of, from sun, which we have lots of, from water where we have it, from the tidal waves, tidal currents where we have them. We are islands. So what our problem is that we're trying to say, come to the Caribbean, but everything you're going to eat, sleep, and dream and experience comes from somewhere else.
Right.
That is not written in the ad, but that is the reality of those ads. Come to the Caribbean, go and bathe in our blue waters, but forget that our sewage in many islands goes straight into those waters.
Yes, well, exactly. And
let's be clear. It is an anomaly to think of tourism as a growth engine when it is designed to impoverish and designed to, if you will, to destroy the very product, the islands, that used to be the main attraction for tourism before.
So, Beverly, and do you think that there is a way out that will focus on an ecotourism sustainability path? Is
examples
there a road that is a possibility that will bring the Caribbean, if you will, full circle back to what it was 40, 50 years ago, before tourism became a mass marketed item?
Tourism cannot be seen as a standalone industry. Tourism does not exist. Tourism depends on the energy sector, on the financial sector, on the road sector, on the agricultural sector, on the health sector. So if you want, quote unquote, a tourism industry, you automatically have to integrate, connect, install synergies between that industry you call in tourism and all the other sectors of the society. All the other sectors have to be moving in tandems, in synchronized harmony, and you will get a healthy agriculture, which will contribute to a healthy tourism. You'll get a healthy entertainment and arts and cultural sector, which will contribute to the tourism sector, and so forth. So, and
is there a catalyst? Is there anybody or any agency or any entity? I've been at any number of CTO meetings where the banks come in and portray themselves as a catalyst for change.
No, forget the CTO. Just pretend that organization does not exist.
So
if we're thinking of a real future for tourism, the model that Athy just described is the way it has to go. It has to be part of a whole. So when the CTO gets hoteliers only together in one space, hoteliers and various ministers of tourism together in one space, they cannot talk about a holistic tourism industry because they're going to talk about hotels and the ministers are going to talk about government policy. That's it. So the CTO itself is doing a disservice to tourism They do not invite the real players in the industry because as far as they are concerned, only the people who own the hotels belong in the CTO. And as long as that is the way of thinking, Eleanor, then we're going to be spinning top in mud, which means we're not going to be getting anywhere. So we need a rethinking of the people who control the tourism industry. And I don't know how that is going to happen. I cannot say I have the answer for it because from what I have seen, people stay in those positions until they die or until they just fade out and choose to leave. It's not the kind of industry where new ideas are embraced, where there are new challenges, where you try something different. It's the same old thing that they do year after year. You only need to go to one CTU conference. You go to one, you've seen them all. There's no need to go to another. And it's the same thing with every single tourism organization. You just need to go to one of these conferences. They're all the same. Nobody different is there. Nobody new is there. You don't hear any new ideas. You don't hear any new thoughts. Nothing new comes to the table. So what we need is new thinking. What we need is for the players in the industry to really listen. And Athy mentioned it earlier, listen to the people who deliver the service. Listen to the people who want to earn and people who really love this industry and want to contribute more and want to do more. But they are kept at bay because, you're just the bartender. You're just the housekeeper. You're not really important in this industry. The important people are the ones in the suits who write the checks.
Just as before we end our really interesting conversation, as you survey all of the countries in the region, do you see any men or women that are potentially able to take the reins of the economy and move the countries into a better space, into really looking at sustainability and ecotourism and all the things that we would love to see return to the region? Is there any individual or group of individuals that are moving into leadership? What I've been seeing, I see in the industry globally is an industry vacuum. I don't see anybody in any part of the planet in our industry. I mean, they may be leaders in banking or leaders in engineering or new science, in research. But I don't see anybody coming up with any new ideas, taking the helm of the airline or cruise line or hotel or any part of our industry and bringing it into a new world, if you will, a better place.
There are, fortunately, in every island of the Caribbean, there's a pool of bright, creative, innovative thinking people, many of whom have actually set up and established little pilot projects which illustrate the validity of their ideas. I live on a 4-acre farm, which is farmed for the last 26 years without any chemicals. We have 8 cottages on the farm, so you can have a genuine, agro-eco experience. And there are several products like this in Dominica and other parts of the Caribbean. And my view is, if you want to go the traditional route of finding your way into a position of decision-making in tourism, you will never, ever get there because that has been locked down. There is an alternate route. And that alternate route is to mobilize. And that's what I spend my life doing. You work with people at the community level, women farmers, youth organizations, some professional groups, etc., artists and musicians, and we come together and we create our own, if you will, economy within the economy. It's small, but it grows. The largest oak tree began as a single seed. But people nowadays want fast moving change. And so those of us who understand the validity of that slower paced, nature-based solution, we're here, we're there, and at some point we will achieve critical mass in spite of the fact that we wouldn't have gone the traditional, classical, political policy route. We would have gone the traditional roots up, from the bottom up, not just for agriculture, but for the process of giving rise to new leadership. The new leadership has to come from the ground up. That is where the ideas are.
Atherton,
and that is where the commitment.
For the inspiration to look at new ways to identify your kind of resources and bring it to the attention of people that are looking for a Caribbean getaway. And Beverly and Atherton, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your expertise and your insights. And thank you for Thomas for best of luck with your new venture.
But I don't know. I really, if I can, I mean, we're not the BBC, so we don't have to cut us off at a certain time. We say we want to be cut off. And I think this is such an important discussion. We should, I think, give our participants an opportunity to contribute or ask questions.
Sure.
If that's okay. If anyone has a question, please raise your hand or jump in. But because this is looking at tourism from a different point of view. And I can, when I said earlier, this is not only in the Caribbean, I can see it right here in Hawaii. We have besides New York, the largest homeless population in the world. Local people are, for the most part, not part of this travel and tourism industry. They're not usually the decision makers. So you can see similar situations in other parts. I've been involved in the Seychelles, but it's not all bad. I think with the infrastructure invested, the billions of dollars investment, the hotels staying empty right now, struggling, fighting to survive. But not only the hotels are fighting to survive, the people are fighting to survive. You have people lined up at food banks because they cannot feed their family. So now is the time to actually implement this type of rethinking into the travel and tourism industry. So how can we, as a new organization where we're saying, okay, we're wanted to support the small and medium-sized businesses, that's exactly what we should look at and see how we as an organization can somehow make a difference. I think it's not realistic to say that all the hotels will close and everyone will now stay at a home and eat local food. But there has to be a middle line, I think, somehow, where such a discussion could start. But of course, there's so many jurisdictions. Every country has its own rules, has its own laws, and we're not going to be able to have one for all. But I think we could at least increase this type of discussion. And because it's awareness. If there's no awareness to it, and then things will not change. And now we have the chance to change, where we're down at a point where everyone is kind of almost starting from scratch. But on the other hand, from the economy, you cannot just say, okay, we don't want the big hotels anymore. We don't want the big business and the rum and all of this, because it's there, it's built. It's together. It would destroy the economy as much as the other thing would destroy the economy, I think. But I don't know what Beverly and Athy, what would you think about
years ago when the Caribbean and tourism was just a startup and more of an idea than a reality. And I've been a Caribbean fan for many, many years. And so I'm talking from personal experience that if you stayed at a hotel, that you could connect with local people, that there was, kind of friends to friends. If you were a teacher, there was a mechanism for meeting with other teachers in the island, or if you were a doctor or a lawyer, where you would be able to meet with them and spend the afternoon or have a dinner with them. I mean, it was a fee-based, These people were not, talking to you and sharing food and whatever for free. But for a small fee, you got to meet with them and share ideas. And if they were teachers, they took you to their school, or if they were doctors, you could even spend the day with them with their practice to see how what you do in whatever part of the world you're from, what your medical or dental practice is like and what they do there. And it was hands across the sea, if you will. And those kinds of friendships and relationships extended beyond those brief luncheons or dinners or cocktail parties. And as time has gone by, there's been a greater and greater divide separating the tourist from the reality of the country that you're visiting. When you go to Europe, you don't want to just stay in your hotel. You go out in Italy, you walk the streets, you go into the parks, you meander around and meet people at local pubs. That doesn't happen anymore in the Caribbean. You're in a plastic bag. You just shuttled from the airport to your hotel and then back to the airport and back home. So of course, these kinds of person-to-person involvement and experiences. It also is part of the Caribbean in New York, where the tourism offices would bring people together from different industries. Not so much the Caribbean, the European and African nations were much more vigorous in doing these kinds of hands across the sea. But the potential is there for us to connect. It just, it's through organizations like yours, Thomas, and the tourism offices in the various cities and countries around the world to get out of their little street and really start to use their resources to make us better and to share our experiences with each other.
But, if I might say,
yes,
Eleanor, you're quite right, and also, Athy, when you're talking about the local resources there in the Caribbean, I don't think that they are being used to the true potential that they can be used. Like for example, the first time I went to Jamaica a couple of years ago, I took my church group there, and there were 200 of us, including choir members, other musicians, and our pastor and his family. And we stayed at the Jamaica Grand Hotel. Now, there were people who went to Jamaica who had never traveled out of the United States before. Now, you're going to a different area compared to what you're accustomed to where you're living. Why in the world would you want to eat burgers, chips, and all those things that you eat in your country? You're going, when they asked me, well, Mr. Brown, what would you like to eat? Would you like some steak? Well, I'm a vegetarian. So I told him, no, I am here in Jamaica. Haven't you got ackee and codfish and all those things? Now, I've traveled around the Caribbean and they don't use the resources, the local resources. And I think the large hotels should be in collaboration with the local people. When we got there, when I went for the site inspection, I asked them, well, where are the local restaurants around here? And I'm quite sure Beverly might know about right there, not too far from the Jamaica Grand, there was a mom and pop restaurant called Mom's. And the food was fantastic. Mm-hmm. When I returned, I told everybody, you can go there, and there are other local restaurants that you go to. Now, you get the best food when you go to the local restaurants. But the hotels, they're not selling that. They ought to collaborate with the local people.
You're absolutely right.
I'm smiling. I'm smiling, you see, because I go back to Jamaica as a visitor quite a lot. And every time I go to a hotel, and especially when I go for breakfast, I know what types of breakfasts are served locally in Jamaica. And I'd walk into the restaurant and I'd say, well, into the hotel restaurant, that is, and I'd say, okay, where is the Jamaican breakfast?
Exactly.
And it's not served there.
Right. Yes.
So invariably, you go out and find a restaurant like you did, where you can get a good local Jamaican breakfast. You can get your ackee and saltfish, you get some callaloo, you get some
Barmy and the whole lot.
Yes, and
Yes.
I mean everything is there, but you can't get it in the hotels because
Absolutely
just like Athy
not.
said,
So,
you're
And
serving
the
food.
other part of it is too, when I do my stories in the Caribbean, I want to meet with the local artists and the local dress designers and the shoemakers.
Right.
And I have to beg to be told who they are and where they
Yes,
are.
and where they are.
Exactly.
And why are all these beautiful creative works not available in the gift shop? And why don't they have tours to these people's, galleries and studios? There is no promotion of the local talent.
Right.
Nope.
And the musicians, not only traditional, local musician, but classical musicians are available. They just, the Caribbean doesn't integrate the culture of the region into the travel experience. When you go to China, you go to Europe, you go to Asia, you're always integrated, if you will, with the local people.
Exactly.
Oh yes, the
Yes.
Asians don't
but-
mess
and-
with
and-
that.
Local artists.
Eleanor,
Yes.
it's also, it really depends also what a tourist wants. There are always two parts to the game. You're a very active person. You're someone who wants to explore things. There are other tourists, they work 18 hours a day. They just want to sit at the pool and have their rum. They don't really care. And it's sad, but they don't really care to go anywhere else. They don't want the local restaurant. But then
think that's
you have another problem. And that's an
that's a big-
agreement specifically is your all-inclusive hotel setup. It's great to have an all-inclusive hotel. I think if I was a legislator and I was pressured by my voters that own restaurants and cannot get the business because people are not coming because of the all-inclusive restaurants, I would probably have some legislation that there is a credit for meals not taken in an all-inclusive restaurant. So this money could be spent in the local restaurant. So there's a lot of things I think that they could be integrated. And I can see it here in Hawaii. People are not going to the Hawaiian mom and pop restaurants because they're not right in Waikiki. They don't find them there. They have to take a taxi and go someplace else, and they don't know where they are. But it's also in Europe. You find these examples everywhere. I mean, when I came back from Holland, and when I grew up, I lived in Holland for a little bit, and I lived 30 minutes away from the Dutch border. I loved their milk products and their flan. You can only get it in Holland. So when I stayed at the Hyatt Hotel in Amsterdam, it was a wonderful hotel, and I went to the breakfast buffet, they didn't have any Dutch food. So I was asking, oh yeah, we know, but people don't really want this. So it's an educational thing, it's an economic thing, and it's an important discussion you're bringing to the table, absolutely.
We
No,
need
and
to.
I've spoken to architects that were building hotels.
And we actually have
In the-
people
in the,
raising hands. Maybe what we should do is
in
give
the
some of the
Caribbean and said, are you using local artists to decorate the interiors of your rooms and public spaces? Oh no, they're using European artists, or they're going to use wallpaper or whatever. And I said, but it's the art and the sculptures that are available are just fabulously talented people that are right down the street from you. Why don't you use and engage the local people? No.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
Then let's go to some of the questions here, and maybe also Beverly and Athy, being quite involved could help to answer. But we have Denise Aliong raising her hand. Hi, Denise. Welcome. Let us also know. I know where you're from, but let us know where you're from.
Okay, good evening. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. The president of the Small Tourism Accommodation Owners of Trinidad and Tobago. We represent the local tourism accommodation facilities that are snug in the middle of communities stretching between Trinidad and Tobago. We have 2 properties in Tobago and 21 properties in Trinidad all over the island. including properties on the beachfront and so. We recently partnered with the Country Style Community Tourism Network that is headed by Diana McIntyre Pike. And we plan to work with Diana in promoting community tourism in terms of, promoting the true, authentic tourist experience when visitors come, when that time comes, of course, for travel to Trinidad and Tobago. In addition to our 23 member properties, we also have affiliate members, and one of the affiliate members, in fact, two of the affiliate members, they promote local products. In one case, it's the Lupino Tourism Association that also has the Lupino Chocolate Company. And we also have the artisans, the Trinidad and Tobago Craft Entrepreneurs Network. They have recently opened a boutique based at the Radisson Hotel in Port of Spain. And they promote, and we continue to promote them as well at the level of the association in encouraging people to buy local, both the artisan products as well as the chocolate products from the Lupino Chocolate Company. You can go check out. I'll put our social media handles in the chat. But I agree with most of the points that were made earlier by all the contributors. The thing is, tourism over the years, I mean, I'm young in the business because I'm seeing Mr. Martin and others, you've been in the industry for quite a while. And tourism over the years, based on my observation, is that it's the same old talk, same national tourism policy, it's the same old, and nothing seems to be changing. I think that COVID-19 has presented the opportunity to, for us all in the industry to take a pause and really reflect and to look back on the industry wholeheartedly and holistically and look to see how best we can really revamp the industry at all levels, including at the leadership level. In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, for example, we've had so many different ministers of tourism changing over the years, and probably it might be the same in most of the other Caribbean islands. You have ministers of tourism changing, the guard keep changing every time, and then the boards keep changing every time, management keep changing every time, and therefore there's no continuity, there's no succession planning, nothing, no sort of progress. So I would really like to see all the stakeholders in the tourism industry, in the Caribbean in particular, try to come together as best as we can, especially the smaller and micro, because this forum is really for the micro and small operators in the tourism industry. I'd really like to see us come together, to have one like a think tank to see how we can push the tourism industry forward so that whenever the time comes, we know that it will not happen probably for the next year or two in terms of real travel starting back again based on what is happening, so that we'll be all ready and be serious and be ready to greet and host our guests when that time comes. Thank you.
And Denise, you're absolutely right. And I know that Diana already raised her interest to co-lead or lead one of a community discussion group, but maybe we should go a little bit beyond this and find another name, what also involves a little bit more what we're discussing. When people think about community tourism, they may think, or it's just a group, they sell, they rent their home or they do something. We have to define it a little bit, probably different. I don't know, maybe I'm off. But I would love to see this group within WTN, and I would love to have Denise and Beverly and Athy to be part of this group because it's an important discussion. Yeah, it's very important for the Caribbean, but not only for the Caribbean. And I think it is important also to sit down with the industry, sit down with the ministers and those people in charge. And I think as a global organization, it might be easier for us to facilitate this if we see, different points of view coming together and someone leading such a discussion. So I would encourage you, Denise, if you wanted to help.
I've tried to do this in other parts of the world, and offering to bring to the table the kinds of consulting services that would help the small entrepreneur develop his or her own property or idea. I mean, there's architects and interior designers and and other people that would love the opportunity to share their expertise in order to have the entrepreneur put together a product, if you will, that will be interesting and fabulous on small budgets. I've tried to do this over the years in various countries. And most of the time, unfortunately, the entrepreneur thinks that he or she knows it all and does not want oh no, we don't want the designer or the architect from New York or Chicago or Italy to come and look at our hotel. We do it, we're fine, leave us alone. So even though it would be a no cost, the offerings were going to be at the expense of the consultant, just for the interest and opportunity to be of service. And I found that some of these entrepreneurs really don't want the outside input. They'd rather fail on their own than succeed with the help of others.
May I say something? I think it's not that people don't want. Is that we have architects in the Caribbean, we have energy experts, we have engineering people, and what we need to do. I was so pleased to hear the lady from Trinidad, make the point, because what we need to do is to network our talents. Because the Prime Minister of Barbados a few weeks ago made a very important point, not just for tourism but for development issues generally. She said we lack, or we have eroded our cultural confidence, our cultural self-confidence, where we look in the mirror and we do not see an architect, we do not see an engineer, we do not see an interior decorator. We see, and in fact, those talents seem in our mind to have been always associated with people coming from elsewhere. So I think really what's needed, and if this global networking idea can stimulate networking at the local and regional level, which will spill over into a transnational thing, where a group from Trinidad goes to Malaysia and relates to small entrepreneurs there ultimately. But we need to build on home ground, because it's after all a Caribbean product. It's after all an Asian product, an Indian Ocean product, whatever. So we need to build it up locally. And that means looking around you and discovering all around you is the talent. We have developed a tour here. Let me give you a living, breathing example. The community, the village community in close proximity to our property, is a small gardening community. They specialize in horticulture, flowers, and garden crops like vegetables. And we were approached by Princess Cruise Lines about 12 years ago. Could we design a tour? They wanted to buy another tour. We told them it would be our tour. We designed what we call a culinary gardens tour, where we took people to the home gardens of the local villagers. They had local artists performing what we call our Jingping music, or traditional Creole music. They were given tours where they were allowed to taste local foods, local beverages, see how we prepared our local cocoa, etc., etc. And then they came, and my wife, who's a kind of a culinary expert, Kathleen walked them through the preparation of a typical Caribbean Creole meal. And I played steel band and talked. And it became a prize winning, it won a global prize offered by National Geographic Traveler out of 147 products that were presented for consideration. We were the 7th in the world. And so in other words, a purely 100% local product. It didn't have anything really imported involved in the offering. And my wife and I also do something, a pan and snack tour. I'm very close to Trinidad because I play pan and I have a lot of my people and friends in Trinidad. And I talk about the history of pan, and I show them how to play pan, and I teach them the wonders of that instrument. And my wife does traditional Dominican Creole snacks, you know, and that is another example of how, if we look around us, if we drop the pebble here at home, we will see that we hardly need anything to come in from the outside for us to present a unique, authentic Caribbean visitor experience. And it will be interesting to note, we have Caribbean people who have never been to Dominica, or never been to Trinidad, or never been to Grenada. So we have a huge untapped market right around us for visitors. In the diaspora, in the United States, in Canada, in UK, France, we have hundreds of thousands of Caribbean people living there. We don't go after them. The people who we hire and give them $1 million contracts to promote and market, they don't go after our diaspora, who already know the product and long to re-experience it, but they don't go after them. So the product is designed all wrong. It's designed to extract value from our countries in the form of money and send it to the same metropoles that are the banks who want to lend us money now at whatever interest rate to build and develop a tourism, and they take it back. The same thing with the airlines. Why don't we have a Caribbean airline that works? We had Biwi, we had Air Jamaica. What happened? Why can't we get ourselves from one island next door to the other island safely and affordably? So if we can't do that for ourselves, do you think we can do it for somebody coming from Europe or North America? No. Why have we not developed a tourism with Africa? We are African. We have a history, an ancestry that's connected to that large continent where there's a large growing class of people with surplus income and so forth, but we don't go after it. We don't reach out to it. We still think a tourist is somebody with blue eyes and blonde hair and walking and talking a certain way and so forth. That's not it. But that's the branding that has been implanted in our heads, and we've got to excise that. A visitor is a visitor is a visitor. And so let's prepare for all, and we'll take what comes. But let's do it authentically, you know? So that I think, if we don't get on that track, and the only way to get on it is to involve the people who are on the ground, who are.
I think we lost you here.
We lost you at the time. We lost the sound. Are there other questions?
Yes, there is Arwin. Arwin had his hand up for quite some time. Let us know where you are. I know where you're from, but please let us know who you are, and thanks for waiting so patiently, Arwin.
No worries, Jürgen. Hi, everybody. This call is phenomenal. The information shared is fantastic, and I wanted to say something, as I thought it was of vital importance. We're all sitting on a gold mine of opportunities. I share the sentiments of Athy, where he, emotionally expressed, "Wow, fantastic." We actually need a truly authentic product, as well as exhibit the genuine cultural identity of the community. And the natural and physical landscape that makes up a destination ought to be emphasized upon, instead of clear turquoise, blue, green, blue colored waters, and beautiful faces, gorgeous looking girls, which I think is totally inappropriate. Secondly, contributing to equitable growth. Yes, that is clearly not happening in the industry for one particular reason. I think there's a lack of education on the masses where sustainable travel and tourism practices ought to be advocated. Third, sharing similar sentiments with CARICOM meetings. I'm currently based on the island of Borneo in Southeast Asia, on the country of Malaysia. It's the same sentiments by ASEAN tourism ministers as well as Indian Ocean tourism ministers. Everybody hopes that 2021 will be fine with the arrival of the vaccine. But that's actually not true. If we actually do have the information on the COVID-19 and the vaccination process and the ongoing economic repercussions suffered by most countries in the world, the economy is gradually not going to improve. It's clearly apparent, but I share the sentiments of what I think it was Beverly that similarly expressed that nothing has changed. They're just talking the same thing and sitting on their big fat salaries. And we, the general public, civil society at large, face the repercussions and consequences of the economy, basically on a whole. I would also like to say this: when I reiterated that we're sitting on a gold mine of opportunity, since early this year, we actually formed the World Social Entrepreneurs Organization to have a legitimate organization representing social entrepreneurs from 7 continents. And what we're doing is basically to establish purpose, priorities, and principles, harnessing the exact structures and concepts, similarly building to what Jürgen is doing, the World Tourism Network, an ecosystem marshalling all existing forces. However, on the organization side is for social improvement arising from the world's civil societies and the mobilization of aspirations, creativity, and ideas, empowering people becoming actors and not mere spectators, but at the same time driving social innovation, system change primarily, participating fully in the development of the economy and society at large. This helps in eradicating poverty, social inequality, with emphasis on quality education, facilitating employment opportunities, and fostering an inclusive culture aimed at developing equitable and sustainable business models, while simultaneously advocating to achieve the UN SDGs and social impacts onto communities. So I think with what I've heard, I mean, we all are sitting on an opportunity. And Athy, right now, we're talking to a fantastic woman in Spain developing a permaculture economy related to what you were saying. So I would like to communicate with you further on this, Athy, because I think that there are tremendous opportunities. And I would like to be part of any think tank groups or any groups that would be formed after this, after the conclusion of this call, because I think it doesn't matter which region we hail from, it's the same thing going on, in short. Thank you.
There was a very fascinating session. I know we're way over time, but I think it was worth to take the extra time. Hopefully, I know you agree, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here. You know, always click on go. But I wanted to thank everyone. If there's any really important comment, please do so now and raise your hand. Otherwise, I would probably wanted to give Eleanor and Beverly and Arthur the last opportunity to say something. But again, the offer stands from our end, from World Tourism Network, to facilitate such a discussion. And you see, absolutely, we don't want to get involved in local affairs anywhere. but it's bringing the world together, people with similar issues talking to each other. And that's really, I think, where our strength would be, what Arvind is rightfully saying. And I can see a lot of other destinations we had on previous sessions we know about, they have similar worries. And I can tell you right here in Hawaii, it is, we hear the same thing. So thank you again. Maybe we can start with Beverly, Athy, and then Eleanor, and hopefully, you take something back. We all take something back, and look at our other upcoming sessions. You find them at wtn.travel. Click on the expo link, and if you have something you think you can contribute with your own session and panel, contact us. As long as you're a member, you can easily do this. And hopefully we see you again soon, but let's get a last word from Athy.
Let me thank you and Eleanor, in fact, for bringing us together tonight. It's been always, for me, an opportunity I love to take advantage of to sort of share what I've learned and I'm continuing to learn. I make no apologies for being passionate and getting excited about these things, because this is life. This is not just my life. This is life. And if we don't get really excited about something as important as that, well, then what's the whole point? I look forward to maybe deepening some of the contacts with my friend here, with you in Hawaii. I've been actually to Penang on several occasions in Malaysia, and I know people there. And there's an interesting Penang Grenada connection with nutmegs, and I'm really looking forward to assisting and sharing and learning, most important, from other people's experiences in other parts of the world.
Thank you very much. Beverly.
Yes, I also have to extend my thanks to Eleanor for inviting me, and by extension, inviting Athy to this forum. Tourism is not something which happens just in the Caribbean, and tourism is not something which just happens. People plan to go on vacations. They plan to take their vacations. They look around on websites, they look for brochures, they talk to travel agents, they make a decision to go on a vacation to a particular destination. If we have nothing different to offer, then why are we even out there in the market? You can just spin a wheel, and if it lands on the Caribbean, you pick somewhere in the Caribbean and you go there. We have to make ourselves distinct and unique as we are, and we can only do that by promoting our people, our culture, our lifestyles, our indigenous artifacts, our talents, and anything that you can only get from the Caribbean. Beautiful beaches are all over the world. The Caribbean does not have a monopoly on beautiful beaches, but what we do have a monopoly on are a unique set of people who, none of us are indigenous to the Caribbean. Well, I shouldn't say none of us. There are a small group that remains that's indigenous to the Caribbean, but we're all immigrants into the region. Most of us didn't come here of our own free will, but we have worked together in the region to develop something which is unique. And that is what we need to promote if we are really serious about tourism, and stop fooling around with things that's not ours and things that we don't know how to manage. So I'm looking forward to more discussions along this line. And hopefully those of us who are interested in building a real tourism product can do so from the ground up. We will not try to upset those who sit in seats of leadership and authority, but we can build around them. And eventually, their voices will become obsolete when the real voices take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, Beverly and Athy, thank you so much for spending your evening with us today. Your insights and your suggestions are incredibly valuable. We've raised and discussed the issues that have troubled me for years, continue to bother me when I go around the planet and look at travel and tourism and see the dark side of the industry. It's all very nice to write about, 5-star luxury hotels and spas, but if that experience does not trickle through to the people that are providing the experience, then it's unfair, it's unethical. Sometimes I think it's illegal. But I love the industry. I think it has potential for being fair. And if I can play a little bit a small role in getting it to a place where it is real, and not a fantasy, then I'm a happy camper.
Rastafari Indigenous Village in the western parish of St. James, Jamaica, offers more than a tour.
Any space like this that preserves culture, preserve heritage, preserve the environment, these are places that you should support.
It's a space for the upliftment of the human spirit.
As it relates to our food offerings and our craft, it is really made in an environment that is always spiritual. Around our drums, it's very symbolic. So you will see things like the hank, things that empower you, things that full power you.
The concept of the village is based in a simple yet ambitious idea: reducing poverty through sharing.
Registration Profile is a limited liability company which seeks to market all of its individuals and the cost centers that are within the village, yes? So every product that is in the village, every product is owned by an individual. It's not owned by the village. But as it relates to what the structure of the village, it is owned in pieces by all of the individuals. So National, he directs and owns his drum business. King Tiba, he directs and owns his craft business. Queen Bee, she directs and owns her soap business, and she owns her Reiki practice. Right? So the space is like a space that we rent to ourselves. It's a kind of a singular plural network.
These villages and thousands of Jamaicans enjoy improved market access for micro and small-scale rural agricultural producers and tourism services. The Rural Economic Development Initiative, READY, with the support of the World Bank and the Government of Jamaica, has worked with these communities to provide investment and training support to create attractive cultural destinations. Community-based tourism has become one of the fastest-growing forms of tourism globally. The Rastafari Village has already received more than 1,000 travelers since the beginning of the year.
I knew that there was something very special here. But it was really when I began to talk to each individual and I saw that there were lessons for me that really informed my life and illuminated my life.
With its rich history, culture, and a natural beauty, Jamaica is uniquely poised to take full advantage of the growing trend toward community tourism.
So Thomas, thank you so much for permitting us to have a platform with you. Again, you're one of the only ones in the entire industry around the globe that are willing to provide an opportunity for sharing the reality of the business. And I, for one, certainly appreciate it.
No, I all appreciate you, Eleanor, because you're one of the few people who don't mind having a different standard that makes it not only interesting, but it makes it necessary. And everyone else, I can only say aloha from my part of the world and to our friends in the Caribbean and everywhere else. And please join us at our next event will be tomorrow with Saudi Arabia. I'm sure it'll be also interesting. We have a Royal Highness among one of our guests, and we'll see you very soon. And
is there a link for people that have to be able to see it that you can share, or will it be sent to them? How do how do the people get to view this on their own computer?
Oh yes, as I said, if we have a number of different platforms, you will probably, if you read eTurboNews, see it from time to time because we're rotating it. But better, in a few hours, you will see it in our archive. And our archive is on the same page you sign up for the event. You just go to WTN.travel. You click on the lounge event, or you click on the very prominent red link in the menu bar, and you can find this. But you can also find it, what is easy, on a special website we create for all of these events on worldexpo.travel. Worldexpo.travel has all our events we had, not only from our lounge, but also from before. And you find it also on livestream.travel. So there are multiple channels you can find it. It's easy. And
bye.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.